Hi friends, I'm Prairie Vintage, and I wanted to talk a little bit about the authentic self and how this might be misconstrued. Because one thing that's been running through a lot of the readings I've been doing since I could possibly ever remember is us kind of leaning into the authentic self expression for us to accomplish and get on the path to whatever that might be. And if you would have asked me before my spiritual awakening, before my dark night of the soul or any of the shadow work in trying to transcend ego, whether I was in my authentic self, I would have totally believed I was. And that's the answer I'd give you. Like, yeah, of course. Like, one of my values was to be authentic. Like, that was what I believed. I was authentic and I was living that life 100%. Like, and you couldn't convince me otherwise. And so, just a little background for those of you guys who haven't been around for my channel, and I've shared before, it was I was very focused on my career, but building security for myself, you know, because of my background. My parents are immigrants and just grew up fairly not very well off. And so for me, it was important. It was important for me to build my security. And although I wouldn't ever really consider myself, even now that I've, you know, had periods of enlightenment and can see past egoic sort of constructs, I didn't and still don't see that I was ever really materialistic or attached to materialism. And so for me, that was authentic, because it was like, these things aren't swaying me. Like, although it came with the territory, because if you were around me, you'd see like, oh, Linda, like, you have nice clothes, you have nice jewelry, you have, you know, nice cars, and look at your home and all these things. But I wasn't attached to these things, you know. I wasn't identified with these things. And it didn't really matter so much to me. It just kind of came with the territory. But what I was identified with and attached to was the security of having to show myself what I was able to do and feel secure. Because again, my authenticity was always of the mind that I don't really care what other people will project on me or whether they think I'm well to do. Because, you know, like, I could have and did own my own home when, you know, I was fairly young and had these things, and other people would be like, hey, you know, like, that's successful. You know, they'd find success in these things, and it wouldn't matter to me. Like, I just kept going. I kept going, climbing the corporate ladder, like, kept going. Like, I dropped out of school, you know, and I ended up going back to adult education to get my my high school diploma and continuing my education. But it was me not necessarily doing this so much for anyone other than for myself. And so dropping out of school and then going back and grinding, you know, since 16, like grinding and working, because I started working at 16. Okay, this will tie into it, because if you can relate with this, then you'll know exactly what I'm talking about. And grinding, it could be a generational thing, you know, grinding and nonstop and making more money than anyone that I knew at that point, you know, even doctors, you know, even dentists. And all I had was my high school, and that was it. And my education was, you know, I took fire paramedics and some modeling, but it wasn't like I went to university or to college. And then I got into antiques, and so I had that, but they were all more like certificates and dabbling in different trades, I guess you could say. So anyway, it didn't matter to me you know, if someone say, hey, you're well to do, and then I could stop because I had my own home, you know, or that I had to show up all these people, but it was, I just didn't stop. Like I didn't stop, you know, and so here I am, you know, like living in paradise, so to speak, but burnt in some way, but it came about very interesting because I didn't feel exhausted. Okay, I didn't feel exhausted. I still had a lot of conviction, and I still believed in everything that I was doing, and then, you know, like even at a young age, like I was always that way. So it was me. So I was authentic. Like it never swayed. And so I was like, oh, I feel uncomfortable, or maybe this isn't me. Like, no, this is me. Like one thing I'd always say to people that know me is like, I know nothing at all except I know myself. Like that was my motto. If there's one thing I know, it's I know myself. You know, I know myself. And so I'd have like catalogs, you know, like Canadian Tire catalogs and Sears, Eaton's, snippets of what I wanted, you know, my bed, a table, a ghetto blaster, like at 10 years old, maybe even younger, 8. You know, I'd have these cutouts of the magazine, so you could call it a vision board, you know, and it was like, this is my life. And I'd save, you know, like every little quarter, dollar, whatever I had, you know, and I'd look at this catalog, you know, of the world I was building. And so all those things. Oh, and this is interesting because right before I was recording this, I went to move my tarot cart, and those of you guys who have been here, my charm box completely tipped over, and all the charms just completely scattered. And I was like, isn't this so indicative of what I'm talking about? You know, like the charms, the material pentacle realm of things, the attainment of things in this little box, like completely just scattered all about, you know. And so when I hit that wall of realization, like I hit my spiritual awakening. Both my parents had passed away, COVID, you know, convid was a thing, I guess, and a lot of people went through, you know, their spiritual awakening during that. I met my twin flame, which triggered my psychic abilities and put me into a tailspin completely. Okay, and so it triggered the dark night of the soul, and so my false self was the belief that I was authentic. And that had to fall away. And so when all of those identities that we create, you know, I was a saleswoman, I was like, I had all these awards and victories, you know, like a wall filled of these things, you know, and sales, President's Club awards and trips, and as my cat scratches. Are you coming in? Come on. Are you coming in? He's coming in. Okay, watch your tail. And so what I'm trying to get to here is that, you know, obviously the bigger the ego, the more attached, the more we fall. And so this wall was like filled, you know, and it wasn't that I had to be the best for, that it would bug me to be the best at all. It's just I became the best. It's hard to explain because it didn't bug me if someone else got the award. It wouldn't do any of those things. And if, you know, there'd be people in my life saying, oh man, like you're there, you know, it wouldn't make me feel good. Like, or you attained this, or you got victory over this, or you achieved this. It's like, doesn't mean anything to me. Like I'm still going. Like I still felt like that wasn't my limit. Like there's more I'm achieving here. Like, oh really? You think that's lots? You ain't seen nothing yet, you know? And before I knew it, it was like I was like always like achieving these things, and like I don't know, it was like thinking like I had this like really authentic way of putting my mind to something and accomplishing it and being successful. And so I was like, that's what my calling is, or like what I'm good at. Like I know who I am just early off. Just people haven't tapped into that, you know, because it's like if I could have this whole wall telling me how wonderful I am, and I'm not even competing in my mind. I wasn't competing, although sales is very cutthroat, but I didn't feel I was competing. To me, it was just I'm doing, you know, and I'm doing and I'm doing, and I was doing and doing and doing. And so when I see this, I'm thinking that's my authentic self. Okay, but the shattering was I identified as the person who needed the security and to build myself so I felt safe and to do, because all of my growing up, we were just told that we wouldn't really amount to much because, you know, we were already set back and we're immigrants and we don't have much. And so you got to grind, and I mean, you get sort of what you put in. And so you got to work, you know, you got to work. And, you know, you got to be ethical and obviously, and moral and hardworking and all of those like very, you know, fundamental immigrant beliefs, which, I mean, there's nothing wrong with it. But then when my authentic self came in, it's like I had to look at all those values and beliefs that were just given to me or told to me or that I took on, right, and carried, and examine like, okay, although it sounds, you know, this morally we have to be correct, that obviously sounds right? Like we can say, well, morally, throw our morals out the window, but it's like, what am I tying to this moral belief? Like, what is moral? You know, like what is moral? Like if I am married, let's say at a very, very young age, and I decide at any point, you know, that I'm shifted or changed in any way, and now I want to get a divorce. Am I morally condemned by God? Am I morally bad, shamed, guilty, insignificant, like feeling bad? You know, and so for me, I got married at 18, you know, and I'm still legally married, and it was looking at this and then looking at, you know, what did those morals mean to me today? You know, like from after shedding ego, and not that my ego is completely gone, because we always have ego, okay, but the big egos, you know, the big identities, and still now, if you ask me, well, are morals still a value of your authentic self? Yes, 100%. But what we hold as morals are different, you know, and I'm not saying people should get divorced at all. Like if you're going to commit, you should do what you can, and I wouldn't change that for the world. But when we carry a belief so fixed that it's unwavering and unchanging, and we never even had a chance to examine it because this is what we always thought, you know, and so then we believe that to be our authenticity. And so one of my values was I'm so authentic, because I wouldn't do anything that other people would want me to do because I felt bad or that they wanted me to do it. You know, one thing would be drinking. Like I never would give in. You know, people be doing shots. Like, Linda, well, why are you doing it? Like, you're always party people. Like, no, I was always kind of black sheep, doing my own thing. You know, I'm authentic. Not I was doing it to be authentic. It was just, it came with the territory, and it didn't bug me. And so it was even better, because it's like I knew there was an authenticity in there, because I wasn't secretly like wanting to fit in or wanting to stand out in any way that I know of. You know, it was just my energy. And I was like, okay, you know, and even I have a lot of siblings. When I'd be introduced as like, she's, you know, she's the different one, right? Or, you know, I was always introduced as like, I don't know, and we all want to be special, right? But it was, yeah, it was kind of like my special thing. But I mean, we're all special. So when we think we're special, when we're not, we're all divine beings, so we're all special, but no one is more special than anyone else. And so when we think we're special, when we identify heavily with the thing, and when we have these beliefs and stuff that we need to examine each of them, so on paper it looks good. I believe in, you know, being loyal. Okay, well, what are you loyal to? What does loyalty mean to you? and the things in your life right now, why are you loyal to them? Where's that driven from? Have you done the shadow work? You know, but had anyone told me this back then, I would have just completely said, yeah, I'm authentic. Yeah, I'm unwavering in my understanding of who I am, and that's true to me. So unless someone's ready, I don't think they're going to recognize that there's work to be done. But what I can say, if you've come this far, most likely you already know there's something within you you're wanting to you know, find that's authentically you, is the sentence, I've always been this way, or I've always believed in this, or this is how I've always been. Okay, unless you were born enlightened, okay, or yeah, if you were born enlightened, then I'd say, yeah, then you're probably authentic. But if you haven't gone through a dark night of the soul, enlightened path, spiritual awakening, then I beg to question if that's your authentic self. I don't think so. You know, that's the you've always been. So you recognize it with the authenticity. But our authentic self is that consciousness behind, okay, the being that is doing the observing and the awareness. Like, I'm aware in this moment, I'm observing that being. And so when I detach from every story, every belief, every identity, what's left? You know, it's kind of the being at birth. So the being at birth that, you know, before I was even given a name, before I was even understood what my gender was, before I, you know, all those things, that you, that's the authentic you. Not to the, you know, at 10 years old, I was already saving money in my box and cutting things out of Canadian Tire and Eaton's, if any of you guys know what that is. Catalogs, you know, like big catalogs, Sears catalogs, if you guys have Sears, I don't know. It's department stores, you know. And like I said, I wouldn't call myself materialistic, you know, but here I am with this vision of things, because it was like, I want this world for myself. I want the security of nobody could take it away, you know, because I felt unsafe in some way. And I felt like what I believed was that you create your own future, which is true in a way, but the way I was connecting to it was so on trauma mode. It was like turned right up the dial. So it was turned right up, and it was like, I was like on grind mode, you know, on grind mode, on grind mode, on grind mode, on grind mode. And it was like, I don't know, like after recognizing that all of that stuff was filler to make me feel safe and secure. And it was like, I started to meditate and come back to my authentic being. And when I tap into that more grounded place, that still peaceful place, that silent place, it was so dramatic from where I would naturally sit. You know, I'd be naturally sitting like, this is my energy. And that was normal for me. You know, it was normal for me. And I wasn't, like I said, into like, you know, any sort of bad habits. I mean, I did drink coffee, but I wasn't into drinking or like drugs or like any sort of things that would really alter my state, you know, or anything like this. It was just, I was just like in this energetic energy that was my signature, you know. And so then when I started to meditate more and more into that calm place, it felt foreign. But then I realized my dial was set to, you know, vibrating at this level of I don't know, just it was a panic state, you know, because I was always on edge. I was always on edge, and too, it was my environment back then, you know, because it was always something could happen, you know, something could happen at any point, and there were a lot of situations that made me feel unsafe, and these types of things, right? So here I am vibrating, my dial turned to this, and not realizing that was my normal natural state. And so it took a while of meditation and sitting in that other energy to see the contrast, because I would have never known, you know. And lots of people, you know, would sometimes say, oh, just relax or just calm down. And like I always say in my readings, when someone tells me to calm down, I'd get like, what do you mean calm down? I am calm. This is my natural state. How dare you? But now it's like, I could see where people are like, just smoke a joint, man, you'll be calm. It's like, I don't smoke, you know. And I'm like, come on. Like even, you know, I was always in like a more of a leadership type role. And so I was into coaching and training, and it was like I'd want to coach others, you know, and it was with the newbies and training them and this sort of thing. And sometimes I'd in my mind, I'd be like, not necessarily with the new people, but, you know, as they'd learn and as they do things, and I'd watch them, and I'm thinking, man, like, I just want to take that and organize it, you know, or like left is left, right is right, put the numbers where they're going. And I'd have this like this system, you know, the system, and I'm just watching, and it was just like torture to watch someone like pick up the paper, put it here, and I was just like, oh my goodness, you know, I was really driven by a process. And then after my spiritual awakening, all processes, whoop, completely out the window. Like even if I wanted to file papers, numbers, do a systematic thing, I couldn't for the life of me. You know, there's too many scattered thoughts, and it was almost like all these scattered thoughts, ungrounded, floating in my mind. And that's really what our mind is, just a bunch of energy buzzing, okay, like clouds in the sky. And so we got to know where the sky, you know, and that our mind and the thoughts we have are these clouds, that they're going to dissipate, that are going to pass by. Some are going to be rain clouds, some are going to be heavy clouds, you know. And so if we get lost in the clouds, we could remain there. And so to silence that and to sit back, you know, it helps you provide contrast to where your state of being normally is. And so when we're in the matrix, we're really in our mind, you know, we're really in our thought. We really believe we're the actors in the play, you know, and all these thoughts are like auditioning for our emotions, and they want to capture us to take action on these, you know, but half of them are just mirages and illusions, you know. And so when those dissipate and we still, that's when the true authentic being comes out, and it is very grounded and responsive. It's not reactive, it's not tense, it's not projecting. It's like a knowing from a divine source that flows through you. And so when you are engaged with anyone else, you're able to connect to their divine being from a place of inner knowing, rather than a projecting, you know, of an experience of that you're putting onto, or a judgment onto that situation or that person from the past. And if you do that, you're well aware of it. You're like, I'm judging right now, or I'm placing this sort of a conceptual idea onto this. And so you catch yourself and you're saying, am I really here present? Am I really listening to this person, you know, and this person's experience is their own sort of way to engage with that, you know. The minute I start to interject my own sort of energy into that, it no longer becomes connecting with authenticity, you know. So all I want to say from this video is, if we feel like we're authentic, I challenge you to question where that authenticity is coming from, you know, because anytime I'd hear it, I would say, yeah, I'm authentic, but it's like, because this is how I've always been, and because it doesn't feel uncomfortable to me. And it didn't. It felt comfortable. It was how I always was. It proved itself as far as I was concerned in the world, because it was all wins. It was all wins, you know. So if it's winning, it's all these things. And then in hindsight, it's like I was always trying to chase. There was always an unfulfillment there, even though, I mean, I had all the things that could fulfill me, you know. And so I could sit there and look at these things and feel like, wow, you know, sometimes I did feel accomplished, because I was thinking, like, look where I came from, you know, look where I came from. And so I was like sort of proud of myself in some way, you know, like, oh, look where I came from. But now when I look at it, it's like, damn, I'm like, damn, I wish I would have awakened. Like, I didn't need to do all those things. You know, I didn't have to do all those things. Like, yes, it's part of my journey, and I learned a lot. But what all did it do? It just kept building my identity, and it kept building that ego even more and more, and it kept me in years in this lifetime tied to something, you know. And so I can't look back saying, oh, what a waste, because it was my journey, it was my experience. But now it's like, I don't know. I mean, now the benefit is all of that experience, you know, I could put towards whatever in my life, because it was all an experience and my learnings. But yeah, it's kind of like flipping it on its axis, you know. And so after we shed the false self, or the main identities that we're really tied to, and if one of them is I'm authentic, that's difficult, you know, because now you're really finding your authenticity. And so that's even more difficult, because you identified with being authentic. So how do I let go of that? You know, I was so strong in my authenticity. And so you switch that, but then you're in this even more uncomfortable place, because you're shedding all these and your pure light's still sitting, but you're unsure of what that light means. You still don't know purpose. You still haven't really uncovered your authentic self or felt comfortable in that light, you know. And so for someone who thinks they're authentic all their life, and then they have to sit with this void, like it's like, I don't know who I am, I don't know what I want, and now I'm for sure not successful, you're thinking, right? Your thoughts, because I'm sitting here, you know, and days are turning to weeks, and weeks are turning to months, and months are turning to years, and I'm still sitting here, you know, like that's the dark night of the soul. And then we slowly, at our pace, whatever it may be, start to see the authenticity within us, and we get comfortable in the light of ours, and it starts to make sense. And then we're like, this is the authentic self. But this authentic self matches so close to everyone else's authentic self. And although we can have a different form of expression, because we all have our preferences, you know, we all have different expression and preferences. It's not that you lose your beingness, you know, your uniqueness in some way, because that's all through expression. And that's going to be different based on our experiences, but we're not attached to it. You know, we can prefer chocolate over vanilla, or vanilla over chocolate. There's still a preference, but it's not, I'm identified, you know, with this flavor. Like everyone knows that all I ever, like chocolate's the thing. Like, and I'm attached to chocolate, like, and I'll never like ever get to vanilla flavor, or like I'm so tied to this thing, you know. No, it's just like a preference for now. Maybe later I'll have vanilla. Today I'm chocolate, you know. So we all have our preferences and our expression, but the authenticity is so much in line with everyone else's true authenticity as well. You know, it's just it comes out differently, but it's all understood, you know. So if we're feeling really sort of almost and it's understood on a sort of a like a level of, people know a greater truth. They may not know why they resonate with what you're saying, but they know on an intellectual, deep, soulful sort of, maybe not intellectual, but on a soulful level, that maybe how they're thinking is more intellectual than sort of an inner knowing. And so when you tap into the inner knowing, it speaks to their inner knowing. They don't have to intellectually know it, or know of the spiritual concept so much, you know, but they know inside their soul that it feels right. And so when you share spiritual knowledge or an understanding in this way, then they can connect with that, you know. And that's where the truth sort of sits and lies, so we feel understood on that level. But if we see a lot of conflict in our life, then we might think we're authentic and we're misunderstood in some way. But that's just because it's our inauthenticity, you know. It's in our inauthenticity that's trying to push through, you know. It's trying to push through. And so I'm trying to compare it to like my inauthenticity, I guess. When I thought I was authentic, it felt like things were flowing for me, you know. So I didn't feel like it was conflict, but I always kind of felt like I didn't fit in. You know, and if we're like really spiritual, we can also feel like we can't fit in because we're seeing the matrix just going about. It's like no one understands me and what I'm going through. So it's kind of hard to gauge in that way, but we know the difference. It's like, I know that beneath all of these actors in this play is the authenticity that I'm feeling today, you know, the divine being. I could see it in everyone. I could see it, you know, whereas in the past it was like, no one really understands my grind here, you know, like no one really understands this. And not that everyone had to be grinding like I was or any of that, but it was just like, nobody understood, you know, nobody understood me in that way. It was like only I could really make sense of what that dedication meant, and you know, yeah, and painting a story to that too, you know. But it was about self, because it was me trying to, I mean, yes, I had a family, so it's like I want the best for my family, I want the best for my kids, but it was still self, because through me, it's like I don't want my children to have to feel the lack or the need for something because I was raised this way, you know. And so it was sort of through my filtered self of trauma that I felt like there was this structure that needed to be protected and built and sort of harnessed in this way in order for things to be okay. And that was just the false narrative, you know. That was my parents' voice, that was my upbringing, that was the belief I had, that was, you know, all those things. And so I don't know, it you know, when I look back and I think, okay, how cute, you know, was I with those little clippings and things, you know, like, but when I look back at it, like, I was really setting myself up for a world, you know, like, children are so impressionable, you know, and no one told me I had to do this, but I don't know why I felt the, well, now I see that why I felt the need to do this, but, you know, I don't know, like, I don't know, and maybe I questioned it then, you know, maybe had anyone questioned it then, you know, what does this mean to you, Linda, you know, why do you have pictures of, like, I don't know, all these things, you know, and I could have a dream of it and no one's gonna interfere, but it was like, what would it mean for you to be in security and love and peace and fitting in? How would that make you feel? And I'd be like, that's what I want. That's what I wanted with these things, you know, like, because we don't want a ghetto blaster. We don't want that chair or that car. What we want is we want to feel the feeling we get, you know, like, I want to feel accomplished and loved and respected and valued and blessed and important and all these things. But we are these things. We are all those things always. But we have to question when we don't feel like these things, why we don't. Why don't we feel these things? It's because the inauthenticity and the fake self, the stories, the narrations, the upbringing, that's the voice you hear. That's the false self. So we can't see clearly, you know, and so we think we need to attain it external, but really we're all these things inside. We are love. You know, when we connect to the divine being, we are love. We don't need to go externally seeking these things. So that's my video. Someone needed to hear it. I love you guys very much. I'm so blessed to be here, and I appreciate you guys very much. Thank you. Bye.